Welcome to 10 Questions with NBC10 Boston. I'm Kwani Lunis. And for those of you who may have never seen this before, we recently transitioned from Instagram Live and now we're on Facebook, Roku, and YouTube. So thank you for joining us. Our guest this week is Peter Barrett of Plymouth, Mass. Welcome. Good morning.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the time.
Of course. We always love to give people that are local some love. And you obviously are very local. You grew up in Plymouth, Mass, like I mentioned. How was that upbringing, and how did that even lead you to the UFC world?
Yeah, so I grew up in Abington, which is not too far from Plymouth. But last time I spoke, I think, with who connected us, I was in Plymouth. And now my girlfriend and I actually just bought a house in East Bridgewater. So we were up. We've been all over. I've been all over the South Shore. But I grew up in Abington. I went to BC High, graduated in 2005. I wrestled all 4 years. I was senior captain of the team, and I only mention that because that's kind of where I got the seed in my head as to competing in mixed martial arts or the UFC. For those that don't know what MMA is, that's the sport within the UFC, and the UFC is like the NHL, NFL, NBA of the sport. So I'm in the big leagues, and it's taken me a little bit to get here, but it's been one hell of a journey.
Yeah, August of last year is when the UFC, you got that call from the UFC. What was that feeling like to hear from Dana White and know that you finally made it after all of that work?
It was incredible. So Dana has this little side, not a side hustle, but it's like how do I want to say this? It's called the Dana White Contender Series, and it's kind of like the minor leagues, like you would see it in baseball. But he takes, 100 of the best fighters that are not in the UFC, and he has them fight each other for a contract. So it's brutal, it's incredible. There's so much heart and emotion, and I'm not the only guy that took 10 years to get there that's on the show trying to get this spot. Everybody's hungry, everybody's deserving. You're not on the show by accident, and it's you take someone that's been working towards a dream and you dangle it in front of them and you say you got to beat that guy or that girl over there and you can have this contract, and it was an incredible process.
And you mentioned the 10-year journey to getting to the UFC. You've had loss in your family. You've had ups and downs, really. So rewinding back, you lost your brother and your father a few years ago. How did you react to the fact that at one point you probably didn't feel like wanting to be a fighter anymore? I remember reading that your mom kind of had to pull you out of a slump. What was that process like?
Yeah, so without getting into too much detail, it was about 3 years ago, 5th of July, right after, having a great day with my friends and families. We got a phone call that my little brother had passed away. He overdosed on fentanyl down in Florida, and rocked the whole family. As you can imagine, that's like a horrible travesty that anybody that has gone through it knows what that pain feels like. And my dad had his own addiction and battles with opiates, and he kind of took that on himself, as it took a lot of the blame. Like maybe he's the one that brought that kind of those kind of actions into my brother's lifestyle, which it wasn't. They yeah, I don't think anybody sees someone going through a struggling addiction and says, I want to be a part of that, on that side of it. He had his own journey that led him down to it, but my dad really embodied that and took it hard. And then, 3 months later, he suffered a heart attack, and I was actually the one that found him in his apartment. So that being said, I was in a really dark place. I thought I was doing the right thing, stuffing my emotions down, being strong for my family, being, the model older brother of the family. And side note, my dad has 10 kids. My stepmom had a daughter before they got together. So I came up on a house full of 11 kids with friends over all the time. So it was a zoo. I grew up in a zoo.
Yeah.
But, by being the stronger model older brother, I guess my way of dealing with it was kind of just to shove it down and hide it and just be strong and show everybody that I'm doing great. And it just started to eat away at me and tear away at me. And I just ended up in quite a fit of depression. I was drinking a lot, self-medicating. I was kind of reckless, which leads to the story that you had mentioned. My mom came down one day and she looked at me on the couch. She said, Peter, if if you're not going to fight and be a fighter, then you don't get to live this lifestyle. You have to go get you have to go get a job. You have to go, you have to be a participating member of society. You can't just sit on the couch all week, work a couple nights a week, make your bills. Like, you're getting your stuff. You're getting by, but you're not doing yourself any favors. So between her and my girlfriend, my older brother had started going to therapy because he was getting married and he didn't want the emotions of my dad not being at his wedding to really take over the joyous celebration that it should be for him to start his life with his new wife. So I had a lot of people telling me to get to therapy. I did my due diligence. I started researching therapists, finding someone whose message really resonated with me. I didn't want to go see a shrink or a psych or have someone say, hey, go take these pills, take these 3 times a day, you'll feel better. It doesn't, like, that wasn't my thing. That's not my style. That's not how I like to approach things. I really feel like, through solid food, nutrition, and diet and lifestyle, you can nip almost, I don't want to say everything, but a lot of the things can be fixed through a holistic approach. And that was what I sought out, and that's what I found. And I had an incredible therapist that helped me get through some of the darkest times of my life. So to have that call culminating, getting through this part of my life was amazing. Like, I went from being 8-0, top prospect in New England, waiting for a phone call to get my shot at the UFC, to going to 10-3, or 9-3, and it was scary for a minute there. I doubted everything that I had been doing. I was wondering. I remember sitting in the basement at the gym that I train at Yad Tong up in Somerville, and thinking, man, this is going to be the asterisk on my career. I was a great fighter. I had everything. And then I had this, my personal life just took over, and I ended up down this dark path. And that's why I didn't get there. And, that's how I felt for a little while. I kept fighting. I kept training. I was showing up. My coaches thought I was doing the right thing. Little did they know I was leaving training, hitting the packy, grabbing a handful of nips, driving home, getting some more nips before I got home, and then rinse, wash, and repeat, show up to training the next day, be a stellar performer for my coaches. But when it came time to compete, and I was in that back room, and I'm looking at myself and looking over the last 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm going, did I do everything that I needed to do to win? Was I there 100% of the time? And I'm going, no, man, you were at half. You were in half of the wrapper 2 weeks ago when you should have been sleeping before team training. Like, the conversations that you have with yourself at that point are very dependent on how you're gonna perform. So when I'm in the back room and I'm thinking, did I do everything I need to do? And I'm thinking, I'm going, no, man, you did it. You're hiding these things from people. You're not being there 100% of the time. And it reflected in my fighting. And seeking that therapist, getting a big win against another up-and-comer in New England right before getting the call to go to the Contender Series was, like, for me, it was the physical externalization of my battle with depression. I finally felt like that fight in itself, my last fight with Cage Titans in Plymouth, for me was the externalization of my battle with depression, and I beat that kid's face in. And I know that sounds weird because we're having a good conversation, but it's a fight sport. We fight. I took this kid out in the first round. He didn't fight for almost a year after that because of the amount of damage that I did to him, which I'm not bragging about it, but
I know.
Sport, like, that's just what you got to do. It's the hurt business. So I got through that fight. I got a really tough fight on the Contender Series. They offered me this kid from South Korea that no one wanted to fight. His MMA record was only 5-0. But what I didn't know is that he had a Sandu kickboxing background, had over 300 fights, which, for those that don't know what that is, that's a Chinese style of kickboxing with wrestling takedowns. So we took the fight. I beat this kid. He was like a giant. He was like 6'1", 6'2". We fought at 155 pounds. I swear he was probably about $190 by the time we got in the cage. But if you guys want to watch that fight, that was an incredible fight. I had to dig really deep and put my heart in the cage for that one as well.
And you mentioned something that I think is very important overall, especially for male athletes. The mental health aspect is something that has been very taboo. And, you know, as a man, you're supposed to be the strong, macho guy, especially as an athlete. So was there a time during all of this where you realized, like, I just need to break down these walls? Was it the therapist, would you say, that really helped you realize, like, okay, these stigmas around mental health have no place when I need to take care of myself first?
Yeah, I mean, did I realize it at the time? No, but in hindsight, you know, everything's 2020 in hindsight. You get to get a better picture at it. Yeah, I mean, I was hiding everything. I didn't want anybody to know that I was sad or that I was hurting or that, you know, I miss my dad, I miss my brother. I mean, I still miss him, but, you know, I have a much different relationship with how those events went by. And, you know, I know I always have them with me. Like, the hardest part, not to go on a tangent, but like the hardest part, like my little brother moved down to Florida to get into a program to get healthy. And he did so well in the program that he ended up working for a company that helped other kids that were in his situation. His battle was ongoing, but he was, you know, if you're doing better than the next guy, you've obviously got some insight and can help them out with it. And I guess he must have been doing a hell of a job hiding it, because if his employer had known that he was dabbling, that they probably would have put him back into a program. But for the longest time when he passed, I was just telling myself, like, Christian's just still down in Florida. He's just still living down there. He's not gone. You know, he wasn't living here. It's not like it's not like we were roommates. It's not like, you know, we lived in the same house. It was just, for the longest time, I just kept telling myself, no, Christian's still alive. He's just down in Florida, you know. And then I really had to come to terms with that. And then that with my dad and being the one that found my dad, like, I can still tell you what it feels like when I grabbed his arm and it was cold. Like, that feeling is permanently, like, burned into my head, you know. Like, I'm thinking about it right now, walking into his apartment, seeing him sitting on his couch and me trying to shake him awake and him not shaking. You know, it's like, you gotta embrace it. You know, you gotta embrace it and be okay with it, and know that, you know, death is a part of life. You know, we're born, we live, and we die. No one's here forever. No one's gonna live forever. And, you know, my personal belief is a form of reincarnation. Like, we're souls, we're eternal souls, and we keep coming back, and we do this over and over again until we get better, and then you reach a state of you know, like nirvana, like you see in some of the Eastern religions. But without going down that rabbit hole, I mean, yeah, you just gotta be honest with yourself. You can't hide things. You can't leave things in the dark. You gotta shine the light everywhere and embrace it.
I do want to say thank you for being so open right now. I know that is not something you want to revisit in every interview, but I do appreciate you talking about it. On a lighter note, I was going through your Instagram and I noticed that you have these t-shirts that are made with logos like Krispy Kreme or like Frank's Hot Sauce. What's the story behind that?
So people love logos that they recognize. You know, I have a bunch of original shirts that I've done, original designs, and the ones that sell the best are the ones that people recognize. They come right out of pop culture. My latest shirt right now, it's being printed as we speak, is a play on one of the Miller High Life logos. And not that it has, you know, any specialty, because, you know, my mom's dad was an alcoholic too, but he drank High Life, and that was his drink. And we grew up, my grandpa always had Miller High Life with him. My mom always brought him High Lifes to his house. My other brother actually has a High Life logo on one of his arms for my grandfather, because he used to spend a ton of time with my grandpa after school when he was younger, when my mom was working. But, you know, we've done Frank's Red Hot, we've got Miller High Life, we've done Double Bubble, Krispy Kreme. I did a play on the Warriors a few years back, which that shirt was awesome, but that was like before we were big. We were like little amateurs. Like, it was cool though. But yeah, people love logos that they recognize, and it's like, you know, as long I don't know how long I can continue to get away with it, but I'm sure if I get to a certain point of being, you know, verified with 100,000 followers on Instagram, 100,000 people want that shirt. You know, these companies might say, no.
Yeah, we need a cut.
We want some licensing. But right now, I can still fly under the radar with it, and it's just a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, I loved it. I looked at it. I was like, oh, to your point, it's great marketing, because people see Krispy Kreme and they affiliate it with you, and they're like, all right, this is the best of both worlds.
Hell yeah.
But moving on to your fight that's coming up, that's the most important thing that we are talking about today. UFC 256. Well, excuse me, you're facing Chase Hooper.
Yes.
How did that come about, and what are you looking forward to?
So Chase Hooper, he's another kid that fought on the Contender Series. He was the youngest kid to ever be signed to the UFC. He's only 21 years old, maybe 22 at the time right now. But he got signed at 18, was given a developmental deal. So what that means is the UFC pays you to fight, but you go back to regional promotions to fight those quality guys while you get better. And once they feel that you're at the level to compete in the UFC, it's like they pull you right from the minor leagues and they bring you up. So he's on his third fight in the UFC. This will be my second. He's had a ton of money invested in him. He's got a huge following. He's got a lot of fans. He's only fought on pay-per-views, which only the bigger names get on the pay-per-views because there's buying power there for the fans. And it's a great opportunity for me to get out there and get my name, established within the UFC and get a nice big win, get a nice big victory over one of their golden children, if you will. And I'm really looking forward to it. He's a strong grappler. I'm a strong striker, but I come from, I trained heavily with Joe Lozon, who is one of the toughest guys that will have ever walked this earth, who has ever competed in the UFC. And anybody familiar with the UFC will think, oh, that Jim Miller fight was amazing. But yeah, this is just a great opportunity for me to get out there, get my name on the board, and get a big win over someone that the UFC's put a lot of money into.
I had the opportunity to go to UFC Boston's media day, and one thing that I was very intrigued about is the process leading up to the fight, which includes obviously the weigh-in, but the way you're eating, the way you're training. Walk us through your training routine as you prepare for that December 12th fight.
Yeah, so usually double, triple sessions, 5 or 6 days a week. I'm over with Joe Lozon 3 days a week. I'm with my boxing camp 2 days a week. I'm with my Muay Thai camp 3 days a week. I'm with my strength and conditioning coach 2 days a week. I work 2 nights a week, and then I have Sunday to myself. So without getting into the nitty-gritty specifics, you just got like 15 training days compiled into a week. My diet is very, very, very strict. Thankfully, now that I'm in the UFC, they have a deal with Trifecta Foods, and they supply us with grass-fed, organic, heritage-raised, like the best of the best. Everything's organic. Everything's, farmed and raised the way you would do it if you were doing it yourself, if you knew how to do it. And it makes it a lot easier. It helps with the wallet, and it's good food. So, I subscribe to like an intermittent fasting lifestyle where I usually just eat lunch and dinner. I'll usually blast through like 1 or 2 training sessions in the morning to get a deep burn on into the calorie deficit to help burn some weight off, and then have a nice lunch, have a nice dinner, rinse, wash, and repeat.
Nice. Do you get nervous before your fights?
Oh, if someone tells you that they're not nervous, they're lying to you. 100%. Like, the nerves are there, but one thing that I heard, a little feather from Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan's famed trainer. You're allowed to have butterflies in your stomach. You just got to get the butterflies to fly in formation. You know what I mean? And take that nervousness and turn it into excitement, and turn it into passion, and turn it into being courageous and going out there and doing what you can do.
I love that. I knew that's inspiration for everyone that's watching today. Final question. Slippery Pete is your nickname. I should have started with that. Where did your nickname come from?
So it has nothing to do with fighting. This is it's a funny little tangent. We were having a dinner party down at my mom's, and my mom and dad got divorced when I was little. My mom, both parents had remarried, so we were down at my mom and my stepdad's house having a big dinner party. I had all my stepsisters over there. So like reality, I have 5 stepsisters between my mom and my stepdad, and I have 10 brothers and sisters and 1 stepsister between my dad and my stepmom. So I'm like one of 16, I guess, would be like a crazy extended American family. But back to the point, we're down there, we're having a dinner party, everybody's drinking. My stepfather, who's no longer with us, he, his brain wasn't necessarily 100% there at the time. He's kind of loopy, kind of off on this, kind of off on that. Always a great time, always fun to be around. But we're talking about this vacation, that vacation, this vacation, that vacation. And one of my sisters looks at me and looks at Vinny, my stepdad, and goes, I remember all these vacations, but I don't remember Peter being there. And my stepdad just chimes right in. He goes, "Who? Slippery Pete? He was always there. He was just out chasing the ladies." And so I come back to the gym on Monday and I tell everybody this story, and the name Slippery Pete just stuck.
That's a really good story. I like that. That was a really good one. I respect it. So for those who may not be familiar with UFC, where can they catch the fight on the 12th? Obviously, they should root for you because you're the Massachusetts kid. But where can they catch the fight?
So UFC, it's UFC 256. It is a pay-per-view event. The preliminary card will be on ESPN Plus. There will be the undercard on ESPN. That's the portion that I will be on. So it's on cable. You don't have to buy anything to watch that fight. The ESPN Plus is a streaming service. I think it's like $5 a month. And then the pay-per-view portion will be through ESPN as well, or through the UFC, however. But you can watch it in your home. You can watch it from your phone. You can stream it from a laptop. But we'll be there on ESPN December 12th, UFC 256.
Thank you so much, Peter Barrett. We're wishing you the best of luck with your fight. And everyone that tuned in, thank you so much. You can catch this on YouTube, Roku TV, Instagram Live. Thank you again for watching.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.